It is Monday, January 26, 2026. We talk a lot about the future of work on this show. Usually it's all a bit abstract, flying cars, offices in the cloud, that sort of thing. But today, we are looking at something that claims to fix a problem that I think we are all sort of actively ignoring.
A problem that's quietly ticking away in the background of the global economy.
Exactly. We are looking at a new release from EON AI Ventures called EON Genesis 2.0.
It is a significant release. And, not just because the tech is shiny, but because of the very specific deadline it is trying to beat.
Right. And before we get into the nuts and bolts of the software, I want to talk about that deadline. Because when I was reading through the source material, I got stuck on this concept of the silver tsunami. It sounds dramatic, maybe a little apocalyptic, but the numbers, well, they back it up.
It's probably the most critical metric in the industrial world right now. If you look at high-stakes industries, we're talking manufacturing, energy, aerospace, over 50% of the current workforce is set to retire.
Here's percent.
Within the next 5 to 7 years.
That is just a staggering number. Half the workforce.
And think about who makes up that half. These aren't your entry-level employees. These are the senior engineers, the master mechanics, the plant managers. This is the brain drain.
Right.
When they walk out the door, they aren't just taking their personal belongings. They are taking 30 or 40 years of intuition, of muscle memory, and operational shortcuts that aren't written down in any manual.
That's the part that scares me. I mean, you can replace a person, but you can't easily replace the intuition of someone who knows a machine sounds wrong just by listening to the hum.
Precisely. And the current crisis is that our traditional methods for transferring that knowledge are they're too slow. We used to rely on shadowing, right? You hire a new kid, they follow the master around for 2 years, and hopefully by osmosis, they learn the job.
But we don't have 2 years.
You barely have 2 months before some of these major shifts start to happen.
And the sources point out that generic AI just isn't filling that gap. We've seen this flood of AI tools, but the deep dive material highlights a specific flaw, this 80% accuracy ceiling.
This is where we have to be so careful with how we implement AI. Generic large language models, they're fantastic at predicting the next word in a sentence. They can write a decent email or, summarize a meeting with about 80% accuracy. But if you are managing a nuclear power grid or repairing the landing gear on a commercial airliner, 80% is terrifying.
Yeah, I don't want my pilot to be mostly sure that the landing gear is locked.
Exactly. In high-stakes fields, the margin for error is 0. You need 100% verified competency, you can't have hallucinations, and you definitely cannot have best guesses.
So EON Genesis 2.0 is trying to bridge that gap.
It's taking the speed of AI, but constraining it with the rigidity of verified engineering data.
So let's look at the solution. They call it a unified AI-powered platform. But I want to strip away the marketing speak. If I'm a 22-year-old new hire, and I've just been asked to maintain a piece of equipment I've never seen before, what happens? I'm assuming I'm not just reading a PDF on an iPad.
No, and that is the first major shift. It starts with what they call the EON Environment Builder. Instead of giving you a manual, the system generates a photorealistic 3D environment. It is a digital twin of the actual facility you'll be working in.
Okay, so digital twins aren't entirely new. We've seen 3D models before. What makes this different from like a really high-end video game level?
It's the connection to the data. This is where the AI actually does the heavy lifting. The system uses a feature called SOP-based procedure extraction.
SOP being standard operating procedure.
Right, and think about the friction of a traditional SOP. It's a binder, it's text. You have to read a sentence like locate valve A on the secondary intake, and then you have to look up at this massive complex machine and mentally translate that text into physical reality.
And that translation layer is where all the mistakes happen.
Of course, because valve A might look exactly like valve B if you're tired or inexperienced.
Right.
So what Genesis 2.0 does is use natural language processing to read those manuals, identify the nouns and verbs, turned, valve, psi, and then it maps them to the specific spatial coordinates on the 3D model. So in the simulation, when the procedure says locate valve A, the specific component on the digital twin just A, it highlights.
So it's bridging linguistics and spatial computing. It removes all the ambiguity.
It creates what they call interactive segmented 3D models. You can literally pull the machine apart in the digital space. If you need to see how the fuel pump connects to the intake manifold, you can isolate those parts, rotate them, and see the procedure attached specifically to that component.
So it's not just a picture, it's a functional deconstruction.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense for learning the what and the where. But knowing where the valve is doesn't mean I know how to operate it safely. The press release makes a very big deal about 100% competency. That feels like a bold claim. How do they actually verify that?
This is, for me, the most interesting part of the architecture. It's the trimodal assessment system. Most training tests you in one way, usually a multiple-choice quiz or something.
Right.
EON Genesis uses 3 distinct modes to sort of triangulate your actual skill level.
Okay, walk me through them.
The first is Mode 1, DO. This is the performance assessment. It's fairly standard for simulators. It watches your hands-on skills in the 3D environment. Do you turn the valve the correct direction? Do you follow the safety sequence?
So it tracks your virtual physical actions against the SOP?
Yep.
Okay, so that proves I can mimic the motions.
Right. But mimicry isn't mastery. You can memorize a sequence of button presses without understanding what they do. And that's why Mode 2 is so critical. Say, this is the oral assessment.
This is the one that caught my eye. You have to actually talk to the AI.
You do. And this taps into this pedagogical concept of metacognition. The system asks you to verbally explain what you're doing and why.
I can see that being incredibly difficult for some people. It's one thing to fix the engine, it's another thing entirely to narrate it.
But that difficulty is the whole point. Imagine that 22-year-old recruit again. If he turns the pressure valve correctly, but can't tell you why he's doing it or what would happen if he didn't, does he really understand the system?
No. He's just following a script. And if the script is wrong or the situation changes, he's totally lost.
Exactly. The AI analyzes the verbal response to ensure knowledge retention. It prevents that rote memorization problem. It forces the trainee to prove they understand the causal relationships in the machinery.
It's like the rubber duck method. If you can explain it to the duck, or in this case the AI, you actually know it.
Pretty much. And then there is Mode 3, Show Double. This is identity verification.
Which sounds a bit like policing.
It is, in a sense, but in regulated industries, it's a necessity. You need to verify session integrity. You need to know that the person who passed the certification is the actual human being who is going to be working on the aircraft.
So it prevents proxy training.
It stops you from getting your smarter colleague to take the test for you. Yeah.
So the trimodal system is do the job, explain the job, and prove you're the one doing it.
And that combination is what lets them claim verified competency rather than just, course completion.
I want to push back on the user experience side of this, though. We've all done corporate training. It is universally hated. It's boring, it's repetitive, and usually people just click next until it's over. How does a platform like this keep someone engaged, especially if they're being grilled by an AI?
That is the eternal struggle of workforce development, isn't it? EON Genesis 2.0 incorporates a gamification dashboard. But I want to be clear, this isn't just about making it fun.
Right, because usually gamification just means slapping a leaderboard on a spreadsheet and calling it a day.
Exactly, and that just doesn't work. Here, they are leveraging the neuroscience of feedback loops. The sources mention XP systems and streak rewards, yes, but the key is the sensory feedback. They use micro rewards, including visuals, sound effects, and haptics.
Haptics, as in vibration feedback.
Yes. And this is more than just a gimmick. When you perform a physical task correctly in the real world, there is often tactile feedback, a click, a change in resistance, a hum.
Okay.
Haptics mimic that in the digital space.
So it's building muscle memory through touch, not just sight.
It creates a dopamine response. When you get that little vibration and the visual flair for doing the sequence correctly, it reinforces the neural pathway associated with that correct action. It turns the training from a passive reading exercise into an active reward-based cycle.
It sounds like they're trying to trick the brain into enjoying compliance training.
In a way, yes, but it's also about clarity. One of the biggest frustrations in learning is not knowing if you're doing it right. Immediate sensory feedback solves that.
The source material also talks about recipes. At first glance, I thought this was just branding for lessons, but it seems to go a bit deeper.
It does. The recipe system refers to configurable training workflows. It acknowledges that not all training is the same. You have hard skills recipes, which are your nuts and bolts procedural training, but then you have troubleshooting recipes.
This is what I think is missing from most training.
Yeah.
Usually you learn how things work when they're working perfectly.
Right.
You rarely get to practice what to do when things go wrong.
And that is where the simulation just shines. You can simulate a catastrophic failure, a pressure spike, a fire, a leak, and have the trainee practice the troubleshooting recipe without any actual risk. You can't do that with a real multi-million-dollar machine.
You certainly can't set the factory on fire just to see if the new guy knows where the extinguisher is.
Exactly. And then finally, there are certification prep recipes designed to standardize readiness for the final exams. It lets companies mix and match these workflows to build a specific profile of a worker.
Okay, so we have the tech, we have the assessment, and we have the engagement strategy. But here is the part where I have to be skeptical. I'm looking at the results section of the press release. They claim this reduces traditional training duration from weeks to 20 to 35 minutes.
It is a shocking claim.
It sounds impossible. How do you compress 3 weeks of training into a lunch break? Is that just marketing fluff?
It sounds like hyperbole, I know, but if you actually dissect the weeks of traditional training, a lot of that time is wasted. It's passive listening, it's reading time, it's waiting for a mentor to be available, it's waiting for a machine to be free to practice on.
So it's the downtime and the friction they are removing.
It's the difference between active and passive learning. In a deep immersion simulation, you are doing the task continuously. You aren't reading about the valve, you are turning it. EON AI Ventures argues that the time to proficiency drops because you're removing the cognitive load of translation and all the logistical delays of the physical world.
So it's 20 minutes of intense, verified, active practice versus 3 weeks of hanging around and reading.
Correct. And for the company, the impact isn't just speed. The source notes that this solves compliance-related incidents. These are the costly errors, the accidents, the fines. If you can verify 100% competency in that short window, you are stripping risk out of the organization.
It's worth noting who is building this, too. This isn't a couple of guys in a garage.
No, this is EON AI Ventures, led by Dan Lajerskar. They spun out of EON Reality, which has been doing immersive learning for 25 years. They have a massive library of 3D assets and experience.
I saw a quote from Lajerskar where he calls this the transformation layer, where workforce readiness meets AI-driven precision.
He's framing this as the final piece of the puzzle. We've had the 3D graphics for a while, we've had the AI for a little while, but putting them together to solve the silver tsunami is the strategic move.
So if we zoom out, we are looking at a world where expertise, real, verified expertise, can be transferred in minutes rather than years. What does that actually mean for the listener?
Well, if you're a manager, it means you might actually survive the next 5 years. You have a tool to capture the wisdom of your retiring workforce before they leave. You can essentially download their expertise into the system.
And if you're the employee?
That's the more profound question. We are moving from generic learning to verified competence. But think about the fluidity that offers. If I can log into a system, spend 30 minutes in a high-fidelity simulation, and come out with a verified certificate that I can operate a specific drone or a specific manufacturing arm.
It changes the definition of a career.
Right now, a career is a ladder. Right. You climb it one rung at a time, slowly accumulating skills. This technology suggests a future where a career is more like a library. You can check out a skill, master it in an hour, execute a project, and then check out a completely different skill tomorrow.
That is both exciting and a little terrifying. It suggests that adaptability is going to be the only skill that really matters.
I think that is the inevitable conclusion. The silver tsunami is forcing us to abandon the idea that learning is a one-time event that happens in your 20s. Learning is becoming a real-time utility, just like electricity or internet access.
Well, on that note, I'm going to go see if there is a recipe for podcast hosting. Maybe I can optimize my own workflow in the next 20 minutes.
I think you're safer than the mechanics for now.
I hope so. Thank you to everyone for listening to this deep dive into EON Genesis 2.0. It's a fascinating look at how the future of work is being rewritten in real time. We will catch you on the next one.